Hello and welcome to Palace Intrigue. I am your host, Mark Francis. Prince William has offered his most candid portrait yet of life now and the future he envisages as king. Speaking with actor and presenter Eugene Levy for Apple TV Plus's The Reluctant Traveller, filmed in and around Windsor, framed by an easygoing tour, an electric scooter dash to the castle, a walk with the family dog Orla, and a quiet pint at a local, the prince set out a clear intent to modernize without uprooting. He said, "I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda, change for good. And I embrace that. I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me. The idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical, but changes that I think need to happen." The conversation was shaped by a year he describes as testing to the core, with both the Princess of Wales and the King navigating cancer. I'd say 2024 was the hardest year that I've ever had, trying to sort of balance protecting the children. Catherine, my father, needs a bit of protection, but he's old enough to do that himself as well. But it's important that my family feels protected and has the space to process a lot of the stuff that's gone on last year. And that was tricky, trying to do that and keep doing the job. But we all have challenges that come our way, and it's important to keep going. So, I enjoy my job, but sometimes there are aspects of it, such as the media, the speculation, the scrutiny, that make it a little bit harder than other jobs. It's just making sure that doesn't overtake and intrude into areas at times when you just want a bit of space and a bit of peace and quiet. Asked directly after the princess and the king, he replied, "Yes, things are good. Everything is progressing in the right way, which is all good news. Yes, she is, yes. It's great news." The prince linked that resilience to a broader lesson. We've been very lucky. We haven't had many illnesses in the family for a very long time. My grandparents lived until they were in their high 90s, so they were the vision of fitness and stoicism and resilience, if you like. So we've been very lucky as a family. But I think when you suddenly realize that the metaphorical rug, can be pulled from under your feet quite quick at any point, you maybe think to yourself, it won't happen to us. We'll be okay, because I think everyone has a positive outlook. You've got to be positive. But when it does happen to you, then it takes you into some pretty not great places. He was unguarded about what most unsettles him. Stuff to do with the family overwhelms me quite a bit. Worry or stress around the family side of things does overwhelm me quite a bit. But in terms of doing the job and things like that, I don't feel too overwhelmed by that. When it's to do with family and things like that, that's when I start getting a bit overwhelmed, as I think most people would, because it's more personal. It's more about feeling. It's more about upsetting the rhythm. Looking back, he credits the late Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh with anchoring him and misses them keenly. "I do miss my grandmother and my grandfather. It's been quite a bit of change, so you do sort of think about them not being here anymore, and particularly being in Windsor. For me, Windsor is her. She loved it here. She spent most of her time here. I had a good relationship. My grandparents were of a different generation. I think when we were younger, it was harder to have that very close relationship because it was quite formal. But as they got older and I got older, it got warmer and warmer. And I definitely think my relationship was best with my grandparents when they were more in their 80s, when they'd sort of relaxed a little bit." He also drew a straight line from the turmoil of his parents' breakup to the home life he and the princess are determined to build for Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. You have to have that warmth, that feeling of safety, security, love. That all has to be there, and that was certainly part of my childhood. My parents got divorced at 8, so that lasted a short period of time. But you take that and you learn from it, and you try to make sure you don't do the same mistakes as your parents. I think we all try and do that, and I just want to do what's best for my children. But I know that the drama and the stress when you're small really affects you when you're older. Day to day, the rhythm is intentionally ordinary. Not really, no. Instead of keeping a 9 to 5, it doesn't quite work like that, but I do try and stick to school timetables as best as possible. So most days we're in and out of school doing pickups and drop-offs. Getting the balance of work and family life right is really important. Because for me, the most important thing in my life is family, and everything is about the future and about if you don't start the children off now with a happy, healthy, stable home, I feel you're setting them up for a bit of a hard time and a fall. And so it's about making sure that we can look after our families, look after our children in a way that is best for the future. Meals together are non-negotiable, and phones are not. Yep, absolutely. Yep, definitely. Instead of sitting down as a family, so we sit and chat. It's really important. None of our children have any phones, which we're very strict about. Of their free time, Louis loves the trampoline, so he's obsessed with trampolining, and actually, Charlotte does a lot as well. As far as I can tell, they just end up jumping up and down on the trampoline, beating each other up most of the time. Apparently there is an art to it. Charlotte does her netball as well and her ballet, so keeping them busy with sports and being outdoors is really important. They're trying to learn musical instruments. I'm not sure how successful we're being with that. George loves his football and his hockey. There were tender notes too, the loss of their beloved Lupo during lockdown. She's actually the niece of our other dog, Lupo, who sadly we lost during COVID lockdown. He said of Orla, of Lupo's passing, yes, we were all there. Sadly, it was very sad. On the role of the media, he set a firm boundary born of experience. If you're not careful, you can intrude so much into someone's life that actually you start unpicking everything. And growing up, I saw that with my parents. The media was so insatiable back then. It's hard to think of it now, but they were so much more insatiable. They wanted every bit of detail they could absorb, and they were in everything, literally everywhere. They would know things. They'd be everywhere, and if you let that creep in, the damage it can do to your family life is something that I vowed would never happen to my family. And so I take a very strong line about it where I think that line is, and those who overstep it, I'll fight against. But equally, I understand in my role there is interest. You have to work with the media. So you have to have a grown-up sort of situation with it as well. It's about knowing where the line is and what you're willing to put up with. Even as he honors tradition, he resists being pinned beneath it. If you're not careful, history can be a real weight and an anchor around you, and you can feel suffocated by it and restricted by it too much. And I think it's important to live for the here and now. I want to question things more. I think it's very important that tradition stays, and tradition has a huge part in all of this. But there's also points where you look at tradition and go, is that still fit for purpose today? Is that still the right thing to do? Are we still doing and having the most impact we could be having? So I like to question things is what I'm really getting at. There was one glance ahead to another future reign as well. It's an interesting question, and it's a big question, that one. He said of Prince George one day becoming king, because there are lots of things to think about with that. But obviously, I want to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do, a world and a job that actually does impact people's lives for the better. That is caveated with, I hope we don't go back to some of the practices in the past that Harry and I had to grow up in, and I'll do everything I can to make sure we don't regress in that situation. The hour was livened with lighter asides, memories of charging down the long corridors of St. George's Hall as a child, pub crawls during his St. Andrew's days, and a confessed soft spot for Eugene Levy's cult comedies. I heard you were in town, so I thought, why not get you over here? I was a big fan of your earlier films, Eugene, and all the American Pies. When Levy asked who he watched them with, the answer was simple. Lots of my friends, you know. Levy, for his part, left Windsor struck by the tone rather than the scoop. To me, it was just a conversation. I wasn't thinking about it in my own mind as any kind of scoop. He was telling me what his thoughts were, and we were able to have a little back and forth. It was a totally surreal day for me. And circling back to the trials of the past year, the Prince's closing sentiment was both personal and forward-looking. You know, life is sent to test us as well, and it definitely can be challenging at times. And being able to overcome that is what makes us who we are. I'm so proud of my wife and my father for how they've handled all of last year. My children have managed brilliantly as well. More Palace in just a moment. Royal Insider Deep Crown tells Palace Intrigue, when I saw William in conversation with Eugene Levy, I was reminded immediately of Harry's preferred style. The casual setting, the confessional tone, the sprinkling of celebrity, yet the contrast could not be clearer. Harry's interviews have too often been consumed by grievance, whereas William's words carried intention. He was not setting scores, he was outlining the monarch he means to become. William appears to be adopting just enough of Harry's approach to connect with a modern audience, while steering it toward a far more constructive message. He admits to vulnerability. He speaks candidly of family, but always returns to resilience, duty, and the promise of measured change. Where Harry looks backward, William looks forward. It shows me William has read the public mood. He understands that authenticity is now essential, yet he couples it with a sense of direction. This was not a man unburdening himself, but an heir rehearsing the language of kingship. And if you'd like even more from Deep Crown, don't forget he writes a free weekly Substack with his most candid insights into the royal family. You can find that at deepcrown.co.uk, or just search for Deep Crown on Substack. For Keller Ogre Plus Premium subscribers, you can also hear Deep Crown's weekly commentary every Sunday, the full column read aloud. If you're on Apple Podcasts, just have that banner up there that says uninterrupted listening to subscribe. Plus tomorrow, Crown and Controversy Season 2. The next episode is out along with Crown and Controversy Norway, the Royal Rebels. And we've got another new series coming your way soon. We'll tell you about that. You can get those all in advance and commercial free with the uninterrupted listening as a subscriber. It's $5 a month. Check it out. We really appreciate your support. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue, and good times.